What if the place everyone said would never break away is suddenly moving faster than anyone can stop? Because this isn't happening in theory anymore. It's happening in Alberta, Canada right now. Now, in just the past few weeks, Elections Alberta officially approved a citizen-led separation petition. Premier Danielle Smith's government changed referendum rules to allow it to move forward, and the Alberta Prosperity Project began collecting signatures at a pace that's already alarming Ottawa. Not protests, not online noise, real names, real signatures, real deadlines. Now, here's the part no one in Canada wants to talk about. According to Research Co., support for Alberta independence has surged to levels that they were thinking were unthinkable just 18 months ago. Now it's rising fastest among young voters. Now, this is the very group that the political class assumed would never support separation. For decades, Albertans were told to sit down, pay up, and play along. Keep your mouth shut, put your head down. Billions of dollars flowing out through equalization payments, energy jobs regulated into oblivion, decisions that are made by people in Ottawa who've never lived the consequences. They laughed at the Alberta separation until the lines started forming, until the numbers jumped, until the panic set in. Well, tonight, we're going to go ahead and show you exactly why this movement didn't just grow, it hit a tipping point, and why the system suddenly looks very fragile, because once this starts rolling, it doesn't stop, and Ottawa knows it. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Okay, folks, Alberta separation is no longer a thought experiment. This is now procedural, legal, and measurable, and this is why this moment is very different from every round of Western alienation that came before it. Matter of fact, in Alberta, we're watching something rare happen in real time. A political idea moved from complaint to countdown. Petition lines stretching down city blocks, town halls filled past capacity. I mean, look, coordination is happening across rural Alberta, Calgary, and Edmonton simultaneously. Now, this is not a protest cycle. This is infrastructure. Now, for decades, Ottawa told Albertans that this kind of talk would just burn itself out, that people would vent, then fall back in line. But what Ottawa misread is that this time, Alberta isn't just angry, it's organized. The movement now has timelines, thresholds, and legal mechanisms behind it. So here's the part most people are missing. Once a movement becomes measurable, it stopped being dismissible. And this is exactly why Ottawa can't laugh this one off anymore. In fact, this isn't symbolic resistance. This is an executable plan, and it's already in motion. Now, this is where Alberta separation stopped being a slogan and it became a threat that the system had to acknowledge. Elections Alberta formally approved a citizen-initiated referendum petition after rule changes made under Premier Danielle Smith and the United Conservative Party. Now, this approval matters because it transforms frustration into a binding legal pathway. And so once those rules changed, Alberta separation was no longer hypothetical, it was authorized. And so this petition, it isn't asking Ottawa to negotiate. It's not doing that. It's actually asking voters a very simple, very single, irreversible question. Should Alberta cease to be a part of Canada and just go ahead and become an independent state? And once enough verified signatures are collected, the province is legally required to put that question on the ballot. No parliamentary debate, no elite veto, no backroom delay. This is where it stops being a slogan. Ottawa can spin narratives all day long, but it cannot spin around Elections Alberta rules. The moment the petition was approved, control over Alberta's future shifted away from federal institutions and directly into the hands of Alberta voters. Now, this story is the perfect example of why the media feels impossible to trust right now. Information spreads so fast, especially on social media, but context gets stripped away. Algorithms trap us in bubbles, and the incentive isn't to inform us, it's to keep your attention. This is why I use Ground News. This is an app and website that pulls from over 50,000 plus sources worldwide, and it shows you bias, factuality, and ownership for each outlet. Take the Alberta separation story on Ground News, for example. It's covered by 20 plus sources. You can instantly see how many lean left, how many lean right, and then scroll down and compare headlines side by side. Same event, totally different framing. That transparency is why I trust it, and they're also why they're sponsoring this video right here. Get 40% off the Vantage plan at ground.news/Ron Yates. Click the link down below. The exact article is linked below, and I think Ground News is doing very important work, so be sure to check them out. Now, this moment, it doesn't run on vibes, it runs on logistics, and this is exactly where the Alberta Prosperity Project comes in. Led by Mitch Sylvester, with on-the-ground coordination described publicly by Gregory Harlitzer, this operation looks less like activism and it looks a lot more like an an election machine. Now, the threshold is clear, roughly 178,000 verified signatures. Timeline is fixed and the pace already ahead of schedule. Now, what's really different this time is the scale. These aren't isolated rallies or social media blasts. This is province-wide coordination. Community centers booked, volunteers trained, verification processes in place. In places like Calgary, suburbs, and central Alberta hubs, organizers report capacity limits and lines forming in freezing weather. Now that matters because physical signatures are the hardest currency in politics. I mean, you can fake online outrage, but you can't fake turnout in the cold weather. Now this isn't online outrage, this is bodies in the cold. And once those signatures are locked, the referendum isn't a debate, it's a date. Now, emotion gets attention. I get it. Numbers change outcomes, that's for sure. And the numbers coming out of Research Co., these are what finally rattled Ottawa. Province-wide support for independence now sits at 31%. Now, this is up sharply in just 18 months, but the real shock, this is where the growth is happening. In Calgary, support has jumped into the low 30s. In Edmonton, it's climbing fast. In rural Alberta, it surged even higher. So why does that terrify federal elites more than raw totals? Because it shows this is not a regional tantrum. It's a coalition that's forming across urban and rural lines. And here's the part they will not say out loud. These are only the polled voters. Independence movements historically outperform polls because low propensity voters don't answer surveys. They just show up on referendum day. And these are the polled voters. So when a third of respondents are already saying yes, the system knows what comes next. Polls never see this coming. Now, the biggest miscalculation Ottawa made was assuming that this was a boomer rebellion, and it's not. In Alberta, support for separation is highest among voters aged 18 to 34, now hovering around 40%. Now, that single fact changes everything. Young Albertans aren't driven by nostalgia, they're reacting to reality. They watched federal climate mandates squeeze energy jobs, they saw housing costs explode, and they learned very early that equalization payments means billions leaving their province with nothing coming back. Now, for years, Ottawa, they assumed that Gen Z would just default to centralized solutions. But this generation grew up watching centralized systems fail. They don't see independence as radical, they see it as practical. And here's why this matters. Younger voters are the most underrepresented group in standard polling, yet they are the most mobilized when the issue feels existential. And so this is where the math flips. When young voters show up in a referendum, turnout models collapse and outcomes swing fast. Every movement has a spark. Now, for Alberta, it's money, specifically equalization payments inside Canada's federal system. Alberta sends roughly $4.2 billion every year to Ottawa and receives zero in return. Not reduced, not delayed, zero. And Alberta hasn't received equalization funds since the 1960s. Meanwhile, provinces like Quebec receive billions annually, even while maintaining lower tax rates. So Ontario benefits as well. They benefit through federal spending priorities that Alberta helps to bankroll. Now, for decades, Albertans were told that this is about fairness. That particular argument completely collapsed when fairness became permanent extraction. People don't revolt over ideology, they revolt over imbalance that never corrects. Alberta voters aren't asking for special treatment, they're asking why prosperity is punished and dependency is rewarded. And so this is why the anger never went away. Equalization turned federal unity into a ledger, and Alberta doesn't like what the numbers say. And what we just talked about with equalization is the exact same thing that happens to a lot of people that are on Medicare, just on a personal scale. Now, one viewer told me it kind of felt like they just took advantage of me. Her Medicare quietly overcharged her for years, no warning, no explanation. And this is why I partnered with Chapter. They review your Medicare coverage side by side with better options, and they show you where the money is leaking. Now, most people, they're already dialing the phone number at the bottom of your screen right here, 909-563-8279, or they're clicking the link that I left for you in the description, askchapter.org/Ron, to restore a little bit of fairness. And when you call, tell my friends at Chapter Ron says hello. Okay, if this movement were weak, Ottawa would be loud. It would mock it, it would over-explain it and drown it out. But instead, there's hesitation, there's deflection, there's careful language. Now, that silence tells you everything. Federal elites understand that confronting Alberta separation head-on only legitimizes it, but dismissing it outright risks sounding detached, and engaging it seriously risks risks conceding ground that they just can't afford to lose. Now, figures tied to the federal establishment, including Mark Carney, have avoided drawing hard lines because hard lines invite hard responses. Ottawa knows that once Alberta voters feel dismissed, not decreases. Silence is actually a containment strategy, and it only works when momentum stalls. But momentum is not stalling, it's compounding. And so when a central authority goes quiet in the face of rising pressure, it's not confidence, it's calculation. That's why this matters. Now, there's a reason that the system leans so heavily on polls, and it's also why polls fail spectacularly during independence votes. I mean, look at the Brexit referendum in the United Kingdom. Polls missed millions of low propensity voters who hadn't participated in years. The same thing happened during the 1995 Quebec sovereignty referendum, which drew a staggering 94% turnout. The 2014 Scotland independence vote hit 85%, far above normal elections. Now, independence referendums activate voters who feel like they finally have something real to decide. People who ignore party politics, they show up when sovereignty is on the line. That's the wild card that Alberta now holds. Polls, they capture opinions. Referendums capture resolve. And when resolve enters the equation, models break. This is why Alberta's real support is almost certainly underestimated. And it's also why Ottawa fears a vote it can't control. Polls, they never see this coming. So what's happening in Alberta isn't isolated. It's actually a part of a broader sovereignty wave reshaping politics across the Western world. Now, in the United States, Donald J. Trump returned to office on a platform that rejected centralized control and restored national decision-making. In the United Kingdom, Brexit dismantled assumptions that voters would always choose technocratic stability over self-rule. Now, the common thread is simple. When people feel governed by distant elites, sovereignty becomes practical, not ideological. Now, in 2026 is dangerous for centralized systems because the old guarantees no longer hold. Voters aren't waiting for permission, they're demanding control. Alberta is Canada's very first true sovereignty test in this new era. A referendum that asks whether a province can reclaim authority over its money, industries, and laws. And if Alberta succeeds, it won't be the last. This is why the stakes extend far beyond provincial borders. And so you can pretty much tell when a movement crosses a threshold by how it's covered. Now, for years, Alberta separation lived on the margins. Now it's all of a sudden headline material. Outlets like LifeSite News and Todayville, they have shifted from curiosity to urgency, tracking petitions, rallies, and even polling with regularity. Now, that change matters because coverage volume accelerates legitimacy. So when stories stack, attention compounds. Now, here's a dynamic that most people miss. Once the media treats a movement as ongoing rather than episodic, it becomes self-sustaining. Each update reinforces seriousness. Each data point attracts new participants. Skeptics suddenly become observers. Observers become curious, and curiosity turns into action. And so once the narrative flips, it never goes back. Alberta separation is no longer a one-off headline. This is a developing story with momentum, timelines, and consequences. And that is how fringe ideas break systems. Now, most people don't struggle because they lack effort. They struggle because they're trying to figure out everything alone. This is why I built Flywheelers Income Society. It's not a hype group. It's a long-term room focused on recurring income, systems, and sustainable growth. Now, I spark the conversations, I share the frameworks that I actually use, and protect a culture that's built around patience and progress, not just quick hits. You still have to do the work, but by being in the right room, this completely changes what's possible. Now, if you want to be a part of the Flywheelers Income Society, click the link in the description down below and join us. All right, now put all the pieces together and the picture becomes uncomfortable for Canada. Alberta now has a legal pathway, a funding grievance that unites voters, a youth-driven surge, and a referendum mechanism that activates people the system never counts on. Now, that combination is rare, and it's very dangerous for centralized authority. Now, this is no longer about convincing people. This is about whether anyone can stop the process once it's underway. Now, to shut this down now wouldn't require better arguments. It would actually require intervention, rule changes, delays, or federal pressure that would only confirm every grievance that Albertans already have. And so this is why this conversation has quietly shifted from, this won't happen, to how do we manage the fallout? Psychological shift is critical. I mean, movements die when people doubt viability, but they accelerate when people sense inevitability. Now, Alberta's separation has crossed from if to win. And once voters believe something is possible, turnout follows. And this is the moment that systems fear most, when control slips without a single dramatic confrontation. Now, this is the outcome that Ottawa fears most, not Alberta leaving, but what comes next. If Alberta votes to separate, the shockwave won't be at provincial level and provincial borders. Other regions will ask why they're still bound to systems that no longer serve them. Federal authority would weaken overnight, not because of force, but because precedent was already set. Markets would react. Political alignments would fracture. Negotiations over debt, borders, energy, even currency would follow immediately. So here's the part that rarely gets discussed. Alberta wouldn't need to persuade anyone else to leave. It would only need to prove that leaving is possible. And this is why Ottawa never wanted this vote. Not because it guarantees separation, but because it legitimizes the question. Once people are allowed to choose sovereignty, the old assumptions collapse. This is not about Alberta's future. This is really more about whether centralized systems can survive consent-based challenges in the modern era. And now that test is unavoidable. And this is why they never wanted this vote. Drop a like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.